Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. Squaddies, we're about to break someone's Squad Central cherry. Let's rock and roll.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Look at you all ready to hand out yellow cards just because I'm literally 1 minute and 57 seconds late. Welcome back to episode 2 of The Roundtable, our weekly show, brand new series featuring top shelf YouTubers, podcasters, call them what you want. And today we're welcoming someone to Squad Central for the first time. I've been wanting this to happen for quite a while. Mr. Johnny Cochrane, welcome back to Squad Central. No, welcome to
Hello.
Squad Central.
Welcome to, yeah, you're giving them all sorts of to and fro. Never been, but welcome back. Thank you for having me on here. I'm absolutely delighted. I got fully into the whole theme of the London Underground on the way into this episode. I love that. I almost could visualize the drunk man who's pissed himself in the corner of the tube as we get into this. You know, it made me feel, you know, I'm down with the whole visualization. So great stuff. Bravo.
I love it. I wanted you to feel at home, you see. That's why. So yeah, welcome. It's been a long time coming. Of course, we've had Pedro on a few times and I love and adore him. And I love listening to you and Matt as well on the Arsenal Opinion podcast. And thank you so much. Pedro's going to join us. He's in the middle of nowhere somewhere in Michigan, I think it is. Did he say Michigan? Somewhere. Was it Michigan or Minnesota?
I have no idea with that guy. I mean, some of the places he stayed anyway, they're shifty little Bates motels. And he's like, oh, sorry, the Wi-Fi's down as someone's being butchered to death in the room next door. We don't know. But yeah, I don't even guarantee that he's coming on. Let's be honest.
No, but it'll be great. That means we get to soak you up. And BX Gunner says it. He goes, finally, Johnny is on. Love his analysis. He always calls it like he sees it and shoots straight from the hip. Really excited for this one, as am I. Make sure you listen to our Chief Like Officer, Tammy Stills. We are on the road to 20K. We hit 19.4 just this morning. Thank you to all of our new subscribers. It's greatly appreciated. Welcome to Squad Central. And to those listening on our audio platforms, Apple and Spotify, make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave a review. And thank you too for making us part of your day. Good evening, Ryan. Good evening, Carol. Good evening, Squaddies in the chat. I'll put your names up. You're all here. PW, the usual suspects. Matty K made it. Well done, Matty. Well done. Good to see you back. He's going to cause trouble. He's probably just here for Newman. But anyway, it's been a big day. Been a big start to the season. There's only 3 days left. Why don't we wrap this transfer window bow up, Johnny, before we get stuck into some nuts and bolts? There's only 3 days left. I cannot wait for it to be shut. And I think I say that because I'm confident about the business we've done. Your take on the window. We've been asking for ratings. If you're like Ben Jacobs and you don't like to give ratings and keep it professional, what do you make of it?
I could do a rating. I'm not scared around here to start flinging grades out, so I'm going to fire right in. I've said it on the AOP, and it's an A. It's an A for me. It would be an A star, but through a few minor details. But you know, we're not going to split hairs too much on this. What I asked for at the end of last season was Arsenal to attack the transfer window like the rest of the Premier League teams had stolen money from them. Just literally, just go at it where we are over-equipping ourselves. Where people are like, oh no, they've signed another one. This just feels like bringing a gun to a knife fight. That's what I want. Because we've had too many near misses. And guess what? At some point, when the managers, because it will be the manager's job on the line if we consistently don't win. It's just the nature of football. There will have to be change, and there's only so many players you can revolt. And if you are Arteta, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, listen, I'm going to actually have to start, buying good enough players to get us over the line now. So I think that we were aggressive for once. I wanted to see it. The only drop down, and I don't really want to be negative about it, and A is pretty positive after all, the Madueke signing wasn't necessarily what, and I don't think it's a disaster by any means, that signing, but it wouldn't have been the player that I would have gone for. For that kind of money, there were other players near enough to that figure that I think that we could have entertained. But I do think that he is going to provide utility to the team. Right side, left side. He's already going to be starting games because of the injuries that we've had. So, for anyone like, oh, did we need him? Yeah, we definitely needed him. And then apart from that, you've got to look at the major signings, which were for me, Big Vic Gyökeres. And I wanted him over Sesko. That was a massive one for me. Eze felt like it was, it would really be cherry on top of the cake. And we've got him over the line. There's no Raheem Sterling bargain basement, shopping around, just picking out heavily reduced items. We want. And obviously Zubimendi, who's a world-class talent. So I think at some point, if you're bringing in 3 guys who I think can, if not are not already world class, have the potential to get there, I think we have to be realistic and say this has been a very, very good summer, and I hope that it's finally the summer that we needed to get us over the line.
Yeah, I agree, and I think to myself, gosh, I wonder what the social media universe would be right now as Arsenal fans if we hadn't had this window. Johnny, and with Saka going down and Havertz going down today, we find out he's having knee surgery. Imagine that the Eze deal was the icing on the transfer cake. That was the cherry on top. Had we not done that deal, I don't think you and I are having the same conversation today at all.
100%. I mean, that for me was that, I spoke about bringing a gun to a knife fight. Well, without Eze coming in, we would be bringing knives to knife fights. And it's going to be, it's a pick 'em. It really is. I don't know which way this is going to go. We need to go in overarmed because at the end of the day, we didn't necessarily know what was going to happen with Bukayo Saka. We might, factor in that there will be some injuries, but for it to happen to him at that point, suddenly you're in a situation where we could have been going to Anfield with maybe Madueke filling in for him, but with Ødegaard down as well. It's over to you, Ethan Nwaneri, bring us home. That may or may not happen. Or Max Dowman, genuinely having to say, can you give us a half here, mate? That's a lot for a 15-year-old, despite him being obscenely talented. And so, yeah, I think for what seems like an over-resource when it comes to our business, suddenly looks very, very apropos. And people are like, yeah, but the bad news is we're going to have to go to Anfield without Saka and Ødegaard. I think there's an argument Ødegaard should be just dropped outright, on form. And with Saka, this is why you buy players. That's what the money's for. You spend it on backup. And suddenly, if you tell me that we've got to go to Anfield with Eze, who is a proven Prem player, and we give him a slap on the arse and say, can you go and do some damage at Anfield? That's not outrageous to ask. It's like, yeah, no runway, mate. Guess what you're playing? You've already started the season. I feel like that could give Gooners all around the Gooniverse belief that something could happen. And Gyökeres, 2 goals. Can you do some more damage? So it's all about generating the belief, not just in the players, in the fans, and that air of positivity. It just permeates out to everything that is Arsenal. And we are going to need that as jet fuel to get us over the line in what is going to clearly be a real, crunch league campaign where a lot of people might be involved in this one.
Yeah. I'm going to save the Liverpool game to the end because I want to get your starting 11 and the squaddies starting 11 too. And Matty K already, get ready for big words. He's smart, apropos, hit him hard. It hit him hard. So get ready for more. Before we swing to the Champions League, I stole this picture from the BBC. And then the picture on the left is courtesy of our good friend Gunnar Chris at Arsenal N7. If you're not following him, he's hilarious. He does a lot of really good digital art and stuff like that. The Godfather in Andrea Berta He's literally changed our fortunes. But I also think it's underestimated. It's funny because when Pedro was on, I asked him when this first happened who he thought the power would lie with. And, he was certain that it was still Mikel. He held the keys to the kingdom and that Berta would kind of be his deputy. I felt a little bit differently. I think the window tells us that they've worked together, because when you hear about Eza picking up the phone and calling Mikel before finalizing his decision regarding Tottenham, that's a really big deal. I don't think we've heard enough of those stories, because everyone's wondering, how does Mikel pull big time players, right? And he said famously a few seasons ago, I don't have to convince anybody to come and sign for Arsenal. Arsenal sells itself. But clearly Mikel has been selling Arsenal well. And this guy, Andrea Berta, has done wonders. Now, the outgoings, I don't think are his fault. They're not his assets to sell. He really didn't have much to do with those contracts. Kivior, probably the most value that we could get. I don't think we're going to sell Martinelli, which would be super duper value. Real quick on, not real quick, I don't know why I said that, but your take on Berta, Arteta, and the evolution of our culture in terms of transfers and sitting at a table and actually having prowess to do business.
So this is one of you will obviously know it. Like when you're in doing this podcasting game and you talk to the same people on a regular, you get themes emerge. You know what hills people are willing to die on, and one of the things that Pete or Pedro has always kind of made clear, certainly over the last 6 months, is that it wasn't his choice that we would have got Berta. He sees Berta as being kind of a venture back into the world of, fixers and makers in the shape of Don Raul, and how that obviously ended up turning pear-shaped. But for me, I think this is exactly what we needed. I love the likening to the Godfather there. I've been saying for a while on our pod, he strikes me as a Winston Wolfe of the Arsenal world. This guy goes in and he sees the problem, he sees the bodies and he clears them up. Metaphorical, of course. And he goes, right, okay, we've got some real problems to solve here. Let me just set about it with, a real vigor. And when you look at the fact that, for me, if you're as excited about as a Gyökeres signing as I am, then you look at the way that, yes, it took a little while, but the price we ended up getting him for, that's really shrewd business. When you look at, I know Eze's, there was the issue with the, his release clause and ultimately what that was around. So that may affect the price, but that feels like a good investment for me anyway, on a player who's got that much proven quality. Zubimendi getting that deal done. It just seems like this guy, does his business in silence. Just everything he's got the silencer on everything, and all of a sudden this deal is much further along and can be, it's like he's playing battleships where he's getting all these pieces into one place. We felt like we were trying to hit knockout haymakers under Edu. It was like constantly the deals were certainly getting out, and then sometimes they were coming off in the shape of like a Declan Rice or whatever, and other times, like your Mudriks, thank God, it would be really far along, then we get battered out of it. So I feel like we look like a more professional setup. To talk about specifically about your question about the dynamic between him and Arteta, I think that Arteta, when we think about the kind of character and personality that he is an obsessive. He is a controlling force, which we can all see. We even saw it in the All or Nothing documentary. But I also think he's someone that when you show him that you can that it's worthy, they're worthy of your trust, he will continue to trust them. We see it with players all the time. He gives people a chance. Miles Lewis-Skelly, a couple of games. By the end, you are the starting left back. And I think with Berta, he probably maybe had an idea of how they'd work. But the good thing with Berta is he's got a track record that kind of speaks for him. This is not some guy who's on work experience. He's done it before. He is a serious character. And I think that even if Arteta added some caution with regards to trying to control everything, I think the way that Berta came in, he was studying things, buddy. All them pictures we'd see of him at the training ground, that always struck me. It was like, he doesn't necessarily need to be there, but he wants to know all of the global kind of issues facing Arsenal, both on the pitch and off the pitch. And I think the biggest thing that he would be doing is advocating for Arteta's vision of football. So when Arteta comes out and says, I need more attacking flair or whatever, maybe Eddie was a bit more of an intermediary between Arteta and the board and managing, the finance aspect. Berta is more under the guise of, let's just fix your problems. Winston Wolfhat, let me fix Arteta's problems. You need a right winger? Let's go. You need another centre mid? You look absolutely banged out at centre halves, but let's go and get another one. You know what I mean? So he looks like someone who he's here for a good time, not a long time. And I think the only way to get that good time started is by serious silverware being placed on the mantelpiece at the end of the year. And Berta looks like he's attacking that, as I say, with a real vigour. And again, hope that he's going to be successful.
Yeah, totally agree. And Albert, Sophie, I always said, especially the first time you had Sammy Mockbell on, that the biggest recruitment signing Arsenal need to make is the sporting director. How true that rings now. Totally agree with you, Albert. And if you're not following Albert, please go give him a follow and a subscribe at Albert JTV. Amadou says, we've needed an adult in the room to stress test Mikel's thinking and priorities for years. And Andrea Berta is that guy, a seasoned pro and a smooth operator. That's what I feel too. For us to arc this conversation, Johnny, is so even at work, right? And you're a stand-up comedian, you see someone do a set and they've blown the doors off and the whole room is laughing, and you start to feel that pressure to perform as well. And of course, you want to be funnier than them. And at work, I always found that when I had a boss who really pushed me and tested me, I liked feeling that, because number one, you feel alive in the job. And number two, you know that you've got someone who actually sees what you do and they want to push you that step further, rather than having apathy, in terms of that person who's above you. I think that Mikel feels the stress in a different way. And who was it who said, Henry Winter, when I spoke to him about this, he goes, Soph, come on. He goes, Mikel doesn't need anyone putting stress on him. He's manager of Arsenal Football Club. That comes with stress and pressure. But I do think that Berta in the house, there's something about it too, where I think Mikel, knowing where he's come from, i.e. Diego Simeone, Atletico, that who doesn't want to impress their boss, right? And I do think that maybe he feels a little bit different this season. I know we're only 2 games in, but there's something about Mikel, the air feels different to me. That's just my Greek gut talking. I could be talking out my arse. What do you think?
I think the key thing is here, it's whether or not Mikel Arteta considers him his boss. Because in the world of football, like business structure and stuff, the manager is like basically the boss of the whole club, and yet the easiest person to fire. So they have a very weird dynamic with their own employment kind of satisfaction and confidence. Because, if Arteta wins the league and then started kicking off saying, I can't work with Berta, guess who's getting sacked? Ain't going to be Mikel Arteta, is it? It's going to be, pack your shit, Andrea, out the door, because the guy who's really in charge in football operations wants you gone. So there is a bit of a reciprocal nature of who is essentially in power at the club. But I think that Arteta at this point, and we obviously, the most obvious case of that for Arsenal fans, it was Wenger, who by the end, it didn't matter who he employed but above him, was quite clearly the all-conquering king. He was up to, he had the chairman's ear. He could do what he wanted. I don't think Arteta is quite at that level, but he obviously has a lot of power in the club. But I think that he obviously would have had some sort of say, or they would have passed it by him when Berta was being hired. And I think the one thing that Arteta is, like in terms of the way as a character we know him to be, I think he is not someone who shirks pressure or shirks a fight, as it were. I think the issue for him is he just needs to know that everyone around him is pulling in the same direction. And then apart from that, he will take responsibility if it doesn't work. He knows that, if he doesn't win stuff at Arsenal, he'll get fired at some point. That's just the way it's going to go. But I think the way that Berta has gone about his business has shown Arteta that Berta will be an ally for him. And when you look at the way that he's, Arteta's full of beans at the moment. It's a good time. We're signing big players. Arteta's clearly getting, you mentioned it about the Eze situation. I think the Madueke signing may well have a lot. That has the fingerprints of Berta quite a lot. Because I think that I'm not necessarily sure that Arteta would have said that's my number one target, but Berta would have identified it from a squad needs point of view and basically said, oh, okay, well, we're going to need someone who can play both wings, a fair amount of games a season, is going to be able to step in and perform at a high level in patches, though not obviously as consistent as someone like Saka. And so that felt like a kind of more pragmatic signing. But if that's all that he was getting, I think Arteta would have taken umbrage with it. But because it's not all that he's getting, because he's getting the signings he wants, the Eze's, he's more willing to go with the flow on a Gyökeres and a Madueke because he's getting Zubimendi's and Eze's, and suddenly he's thinking, I'm willing to listen on some parts because you're willing to listen to me on others. And that is why I feel like Arteta is happy with Berta, and I think they're going to make a good team.
Yeah, agree. I really think that the next step in the evolution of kind of what we've done this summer is the assets that we have and selling them. Let's see what happens with Kivior. They're saying that's a loan to buy. Martinelli didn't get a sniff in the game last weekend. We know that Arteta is huge fans of players, but we also know that eventually if you're not delivering or you could do something that just turns him off, then you could well be... sorry, just something grabbed my attention there and I had to giggle. You could well be out. I mean, it took Kivior how many games and, going into the summer off season for Mikel to forgive him about what happened in the quarterfinal of the Champions League against Bayern, and he came back stronger. So the selling part, I think, is something that we need to be better at. And there's the argument, Johnny, always like, how did Liverpool get that much? And how did Chelsea get 35 million for... And the Hutchison deal was a perfect example of like, what? They paid what for him? That's where Berta, I think, and we're going to end up selling players that we don't like, that we do like. And that's the position that we've wanted to be in, isn't it? Is you're going to let go of players that you actually fell in love with. But that's the strength. It's like, having the boss and being a boss and making sure there's a succession line. That's the power of the confidence that you have. In terms of moving on and moving forward, no matter what walk of life that you're in. And we do have to get better at that, don't we?
100%. The selling thing's a real issue, but I thought you put it perfectly in, your initial lead into the Berta conversation, because these aren't his players. They aren't his contracts. And so when you're trying to, it's like you've inherited, a bunch of property where the mortgage is so disproportionate to the quality of property and you're trying to sell it. It's like, yeah, it's going to be really hard to move this stuff because people look at the value of the commodity and are like, the numbers don't match here. So I think that there will be a time. I remember when Wenger used to talk about like how it was actually in relation to how the crop of players that have come through his youth system how long they would take to have influence over the international scene. And he said, like, look, these kids are coming through now, they're 6. So by the time they're 18, 19, that's when you're going to start seeing the effects. And I always remember, like, how he was saying, like, speaking about almost like he's planting seeds in the field and they will eventually, harvest. And I think that we're trying to make our situation one where if we're successful, the players that have helped us be successful will become inherently more valuable to others because you're a league winner. That's what Liverpool get a bit of shine. That's what Chelsea or City or whatever could get a bit of shine because it's like, oh, this guy won a cup. You know what I mean? We don't have many of those. The other part of it is once you get out of some of these bad contracts, then you can get people on better, more reasonable contracts, and then getting rid of them is going to be easier. And the other part of it is, some of these players that we sell, as you said, are going to be ones that we've liked or thought that we're going to make it. But we're also under the we've got the motivation to try and flog some of our absolute dead wood and try and expect handsome returns for it. And the reality is some of these guys are like, no, you know what I mean? I don't want Lokonga for 40 million. Thank you very much. Why would I want him? What has he done to, he went down with Luton. The reality is some of these guys are going to have to go before we can start to move on players like Martinelli. I think Trossard we could have sold if we went about our business properly there. But, it's going to be players who have done something, because you need to be able to send them the tape, the club who are trying to buy, and here's the tape, this is what they can do. If you can't get a highlight reel together, how the fuck are you going to demand decent fees? You know what I mean? So, I think that will take a little bip of time. But if Berta's serious, and I think he is, he will be already planting those seeds like Wenger did to be able to maybe, crop a serious harvest in a few years down the line. And then we'll start being more reasonable and serious characters on the outgoings front as well.
Yeah. The good example of one is Emil Smith-Rowe, right? From a love perspective, and, player who really did help with the revolution of liking Arsenal again and feeling like you belong to the club again. He and Saka put the team on their shoulders for, he was definitely part of that for one season. Saka has been part of it since he debuted and stuff. So, all right. Well, good stuff on the transfer window and Big Berta and Super Mick. Let's dive in and talk about the Champions League draw before we get to the big match this weekend. And by the way, you guys, thanks for everyone who tuned into the Kevin Hatchard special on CAMPBELL. Whether or not that happens, we'll see, but go check it out. 10,000 views so far, and really appreciate you tuning into that. Kevin's brilliant and one of the best European experts that we had. And if you missed his piece on Mosquera, you can find that in the live section too. Just really good stuff. We dig deeper, and he gives all of his insights. One of the best European football experts out there. Champions League draw. You happy?
I'm positively delighted. My mate sent that through to me. Oh, that is the kind of stuff that can get you hot under the collar. Let's just bang through a couple of these guys as it is. So Bayern Munich, they need something coming their way. They need some lefts and rights. They've got away. They've caught us at bad times, even when we were better than them in the Champions League, and we went out through naivety, competition naivety. But I am not overly, fearful of the current Bayern Munich team. Harry Kane is a good player, but he's aging. Vincent Kompany, I think, is a decent manager, but still unproven at the top level. Arteta's had a very good time against him. Obviously, it was against Burnley. But I think the fact that we're getting them at home, I think they're going to get beaten by us this time. I had a look on the Arsenal website and saw our head-to-head record. Played 14, won 3 games, drawn 3, and lost 8. Oh, that's smart. It's like they are due one. Seriously due one. Inter Milan, they're a tricky team. And obviously, we lost to them last year by having to go to San Siro. Exactly. And we are going to have to go there again. But I do feel like what I saw in that final when they got absolutely shellacked by PSG. And I mean, we were a really competitive tie. That's whatever you felt about that semi-final. It was the most competitive game or tie, I should say, that they had in the competition. So it did feel, and you can say it's Arsenal hat on, that we were the best 2 teams in the competition. But I think that can be a winnable game, especially with the recent experience of going there. But we can take a draw. Atletico Madrid, I'm delighted that we got them at home, as opposed to having to go out there. That
totally agree.
Horrible European fixture that is, when you have to go away to Atletico and try and get something. They're just, when we talk about the way Arsenal are now, that's how Atletico are, just incredibly robust. I'm surprised they've not reanimated the corpse of Godin, like they're getting him out there, just wheeling out guys who just won't let it go. And so the idea that, that is a game, but I think much more winnable tie at home. And then, I mean, I don't think obviously Club Brugge walloped Rangers, but everyone else should be getting beat downs. And I fully expect us to have a very strong campaign. And who knows, maybe we could be a threat for winning this league stage this time out.
I like the group. I like that we're playing Olympiacos at home. In fact, well, the last time I was at an Olympiacos Arsenal home game was actually really depressing. It was the Europa League match where the Greeks beat us. They're away fans, just for the spectacle of it and everything. The Olympiacos fans travel well, but playing in Athens against them is intimidating. They are, for me, one of the loudest, craziest fan bases in all of Europe. And they were crazy even before Marinakis got there. It's not just about him and his persona and his personality. So I am glad that we're playing them at home. I'm also happy that we don't have to go to Kazakhstan. And we are playing now. I'm going to bastardize this, I'm sure. I felt like something I ate last night that gave me a bit of a dodgy belly. Karat Almaty. I don't know if I said that, showing my white girl skills here. Very good. So I'm happy we don't have to go to Kazakhstan, because that's a ball buster. Let's be honest. In season, you don't want to do that. An Athletic Club, they're so wishy-washy, aren't they? I mean, everyone talks about their history and this and that, but come on. The toughest game here, we all know, is Bayern Munich, Inter, and Atletico Madrid. And I think Olympiacos is a bit of we've got to be careful there. They've been really good in Europe, and their European pedigree is definitely elevated in the last 3 seasons, Johnny.
Well, the real thing is, so obviously we've seen the competition change last year, and because it's changed, there isn't the legacy over a number of years to work out, what is your preferred route, preferred kind of combination to get through, how best. We've only got last year's experience. But one of the things that I think is becoming clearer for me anyway, after 2 draws now, as in last year's and this year's, it's not the teams that you play, it's where you play them. Because, you're going to play some difficult teams. That's the point. That's the nature of why they've changed this format. But if you're like, you've got to go to the Bernabeu, to the Allianz, to, which you could, know what I mean? Like, go to Atleti's ground, which escapes me right now. But, either way, if you're playing teams
something
like that,
Calderon, not Calderon,
Vicente Calderon,
yeah,
is it Calderon?
Yeah.
And that makes so much difference. The other point, obviously, like not going to Kazakhstan, I don't think EasyJet flies there from Stansted anymore. So we don't want our boys having really put themselves out there to get over. So it's a great draw. We just want minimal fuss. One of the most interesting dynamics this year is going to be how the league shakes up and therefore shapes our Champions League campaign. Because if we're top of the league, if we're kind of in a Liverpool situation and, they finished top of the Champions League and they were obviously leading the league, but I think there would be a point if we start to get a decent league, especially with how tough our start has been in the league, and the idea that we should be able to bring something home if we have a really good start by Christmas. I think it might just change, even subtly, mentally, our tactics and approach in the Champions League. And we'll obviously be going for it, but I think we would also, attack it in a way where we're like, well, we've got the league as our main focus, because I do think that Arteta would start going for that if he had a choice late on, because there's less opportunity for chaos, I guess, because it's over a longer period.
I think your comment about where you play, it's huge, bang on, spot on, because a few of the squaddies have said it too. Going to Atletico Madrid is not easy. You don't want to do that. It's bad enough like going to the San Siro Even going to Bayern Munich, we've suffered greatly. I like where we're playing these games. And I think that is a really, really good point. It's not necessarily who, and sometimes it's all about the where. So of all the English teams, I think that, I'm not saying the other, Manchester City have to play Real Madrid again, of course. I actually heard someone, because I did Sky earlier, and the Manchester City guy said, "Oh God, we play Real Madrid again. Isn't anyone bored of that?" I'm like, how can you be bored of that? I'm not bored of playing Bayern Munich. We've played them a lot. I guess I'm not as bored because I think we could actually beat them now. Barcelona, maybe we got bored of playing them when we were really rubbish. But I didn't really dig the format when they first announced it. I went all righteous, and the monetization, social justice warrior. They're bastardizing the game. But by the second game in, I was like, this is actually quite cool. I don't know how you feel about it.
100%. I mean, the bastardization of the game is a whole different subject, really. I mean, there are elements of that. Yeah, that is another show. But in terms of whether the new format, I believe, is an improvement, 100%. I mean, part of what they aim to do with this is get less like dead rubber games, get less games where you're having to go home and away to the champions of, Kazakhstan or whatever. And those games are less glamorous than, can we get Arsenal playing Real Madrid? Can we get Arsenal playing, Barcelona?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. And when you're guaranteeing more head-to-heads whilst everyone's still in the competition, because remember what happens is once you get to the knockouts, then these guys go out anyway and you don't get to face them. So you're probably only going to play one or two good teams, maybe two if you've got a tough group in the old format. Whereas here, you're guaranteeing watching your team against usually four at least good teams in European football. So it's interesting. And now we know how, and what will become clearer, and this is why I think it's a really positive move. You can't have experience without going through it once. And so because the format was new, the prestige of winning that league aspect was relatively unknown. You just projected and like, what is this going to actually mean? They've now realized so much so that what can't happen is actually what happened to us, where you finish in like the top four or whatever, and then you end up getting just, initially a home tie in terms of where you finish, and then just away fixtures all the way along, when it's like, well, hold up. Real Madrid nearly got relegated out of this thing, and they've got the home tie at the Bernabeu. This doesn't make sense. So I believe they're changing that. And if then, I'm pretty sure I've read that they've changed that. And even if they weren't, they should definitely do that, because at that point, the true value of finishing really well in the league aspect will become clearer to everyone, and you're going to get more ding dongers in the league stage with basically FIFA exhibition matches.
Yeah,
team elite 5-star teams playing each other's, wanting it, needing it. Other good teams getting relegated out of this league format or whatever, it starts to put a lot more pressure earlier on in the competition, which is what we want. It makes the games, much more watchable.
Johnny, I wonder what you think about this too, because it did cross my mind. Like Kevin De Bruyne magically going back to Manchester City. They're playing Napoli. You're looking at Trent going back to Liverpool. Sean's asking a question over the training of the AI model used for the draw wasn't steered towards certain matchups in certain locales and stuff. What's your take on that? I mean, we had LeBron James just a few months ago talk about how he thought him going to Cleveland was rigged. I mean, come on. This happens in sports. I don't think we're that naive, but what do you make of it?
I think it was picked by some 12-year-old kid in a room playing FIFA, and they just lined up the teams and was like, put them together. They call it AI. I mean, technically it is intelligence, so, but no, of course, look, I think people would be foolish to think that at the end of the day, they can even try and write in. AI is such an unknown with regards to some of the parameters with which it, operates in. I was reading an article or listening to something about how, certain AI models can try to fool they're they're masters, if you like, because they're actually operating separate goals and whatnot. So if AI was factoring in what would be the most entertaining, it's even got it in there. I think that there's every chance that could be baked into it, have some level of influence over it. And if not, then I do think that certain games were always going to be presented like that. That's just the way it goes. It's like that's just chance, But yeah, I mean, you would not shock me if you said that there was a slight lean towards storylines and entertainment.
Yeah. Matty K, you're cracking me up. AI scary Skynet in 5 years. I'll be back. Absolutely. Listen, Hollywood is, people could poo-poo it, but Hollywood is way ahead of its time when it comes to technology and movies and stuff. Well, I digress a little bit here, but Tony, my partner, a few weeks ago bought one of those robots. They're round, and you just let it go and it vacuums the whole house. And it literally figures out all the nooks and crannies, and it goes around stuff and under stuff. I mean, it is really awesome and really clean. And then sometimes when I'm sitting and watching the football and I want a cup of tea or coffee or a beer or a Bloody Mary, depending what time of day it is, I wish I could just yell out, "Robot, go get me a beer." I mean, it's coming. I would buy a robot, but I wouldn't want to end up like Skynet, that's for sure. So we'll see. Okay, that's the Champions League draw. Are we going to win it? 30 seconds. Are we going to win it?
I've just said yes. I've gone yes for the Champions League and the league. Sorry if that was your next question, but I'll get there, because I think it's intertwined, purely because I'm not sure we will actually win a double, but I think we're going to win one of them. And without knowing how the league starts, I don't know. Like if we start poorly in the league and it becomes clearer to pivot towards Champions League, I think we've got every chance of winning Champions League after last year's foray. And if we start strongly in the league, which I'm hopeful we will, then I wouldn't be surprised if towards the end, if we get injuries, we certainly prioritise the league games and getting that over the line. So I'm saying yes to both, but really I think one of them will be ours this year.
I hope so. I mean, the Champions League is the one that we could just shut everyone up with for sure. The one that we haven't won. You talk of statues. I think if Mikel won the Champions League, he would warrant a statue outside the Emirates. There's no doubt about that. Right, let's talk about the big game. We'll finish on this one. You guys, we've talked about Berta, the transfer window, Mikel Arteta, and we've also just discussed the Champions League draw. Now we get to the nitty-gritty. It's Liverpool versus Arsenal this weekend. It's the game we all want to win. Johnny, what you got? Talk to me.
It's a big one. It's a big one. Yeah, in case anyone was wondering. Look, there's a lot of moving parts on this one, and it for me feels like we could strike a massive blow. And I know people are like, "Oh, it's too early for the league." Don't give me that shit. Don't give me that shit. If we go into Anfield, get the masks up, the Jokeres mask. Start rolling around saying, "Stick the points in the bag. This is a stick up and no one gets hurt." Just do it. Get it in there now. Rough up a bit of Big Virgil. Defensively, we are an absolute nightmare at the moment. We obviously put the straitjacket, Yuri Timber, on Mohamed Salah and say, "You're out the game." And we've got every reason at the moment. I think we're a better team than them. Mm-hmm. Defensively, they look a bit weak. And that's what happens when you change half of your back line. It looks a little bit different. Milos Kerkez looks a little bit. I was surprised. I watched the Newcastle game. I'm like, mate, this guy's getting got at. And I think he's a good player, but he's adjusting. Frimpong's obviously injured, so it's Connor Bradley again. Can we have our wingers be able to do Connor Bradley for once? He's an absolute. Sometimes he's been getting away with murder. I want wingers who can roast this guy. And as I say, I think Big Vic is going to keep it rolling. So don't be surprised if Eze plays in this game and scores a goal. Do not be surprised. I'm telling you, I think he's a hit the ground running kind of guy. The big guys can't wait to announce themselves. And I'm optimistic about this one. I'm I'm not sure. Are we doing predictions now?
No, we're gonna do predictions at the end, because what I
Okay.
want to get from you first. There was on the round table last week, one of our listeners, Andy, asked Tom and Harry about what would their Arsenal starting 11 look like against a team like Liverpool versus a team like Newcastle. So this Liverpool team, I agree with you. They were very vulnerable against Bournemouth. You could say they got lucky. They performed like champions against Newcastle. They got a little luck along the way, but it was a great goal, a great finish to win the match. And some people start talking about VAR. I mean, that was a terrible red card. Anthony Gordon's an idiot. I mean, he put his team in jeopardy, and but for that, you don't know what the outcome of the match would be. They are vulnerable on set pieces. They are definitely gelling as a squad. I do think more so than last season, I feel like we have more of a chance. Now, would I feel better if Saka was fit and if Havertz was available to come off the bench? At the top of the show, you talked about Odegaard being dropped. So I'm just wondering, with all of that, with the injuries that we have, Trossard wasn't in training yesterday or today, I think it was. What does your starting 11 look like? How are you attacking this Liverpool team?
So I do think that absolutely I agree with what you're saying about Havertz, but we've known for a little while that he's been injured now, and I say a little while, but it didn't happen yesterday or anything,
Right.
and hopefully that's not going to be the longest term, but the only thing that is stopping everyone universally saying that this is a brilliant time to play them is because these chance injuries have happened. But I think this is a wicked time to play them because we're both bedding in players, and I will get onto this starting 11, I promise, but we're both bedding in players, and, they're not settled right now. And what we don't want is April rolls around, crunch game, got to go to Anfield to win like we thought we might have to do last year, and suddenly all their new players are more well adjusted, and they're solid at Anfield, hard to break down, unless you get them when their defence is all new and they're looking panicky, and people have been able to get at them in both games. Absolutely, I think Newcastle should have got something out. Would have if Anthony Gordon didn't get sent off. But I think that we have to obviously pick an attacking lineup. Defensively, it's going to. I could say it's going to pick itself, but it's not actually. There are a couple of options there. Obviously, Phil and Grant at centre half, they're not going anywhere. You bring out the best for the best, and the best goalkeeper in the league in David Raya. And what a start to season he's made. Then I'm going Yuri and Timber on whatever side Mohamed Salah's playing. So
I love
obviously
him.
it's the right. Yeah,
I love Timber.
I'd play him at left back because technically, this is my take. I do a ratings after every show and every Premier League match. Yuri Timber was my player of the season last year. I actually think there's an argument he's the best player at the club. He is incredibly, incredibly consistent. Last week was a piss take. That's a 10 out of 10 game. 2 goals, obviously, assists, just shut down. He's the best one-on-one defender we have at the club. Obviously, Big Bill can do things as well, but this guy's flaw, he just doesn't have bad games. Exceptional player, and I've seen him shut Mohamed Salah down before. We have struggled when we can't put Timber on Salah. I'm putting Timber on Salah, and at right back, if that means playing Ben White, whatever, or whatever options based on injuries permitting. But I would tend to do it kind of that way. And then in terms of our midfield, Zubi and Declan just straight through. And then the real interesting ones are, I would play Ethan Nwaneri is going to have to play, in my opinion. And I think that we should go right midfield, right wing, if you like, Noni Madueke, because it was quite clear that his game picked up when he filled in for Saka and he switched sides. I think he looked more natural in that position. So let's just go with the hot hand in the sense that we've got to fill that with someone. Obviously, Eze could play there, but go with Madders where he's most comfortable. And then Eze on the left and Ethan Nwaneri as a number 10, and then Big Vic up top. And that's just nightmares for a lot of people. I think we can do real damage. And the reason why I've said it like that, I set it up like that, Sophie, is because what I like about the business that we've done is we are now able, even with these injuries, to go into Anfield with a really attacking, what feels like an attacking lineup, and feels like we can hurt them. And even with that team, got someone like Martinelli who's had a very good time against Liverpool off the bench to be able to do some damage if we need him. That's the kind of thing where we can start to feel like we've turned a corner, because these injuries before felt like they would just be, the death knell in us. Whereas now it looks like we've got options to be able to be consistent and competitive no matter who's coming out for us. So that's the way I'd do it. I think there's enough danger to give a shaky Liverpool a hell of a lot of trouble on Sunday.
Okay, so I'll give it a little twist. I think what Mikel's going to do is he'll play Eze in the 10. And because of Martinelli's success, barring the pass he didn't see to Saka a couple of seasons ago, I think he'll play Martinelli on the left, Noni on the right, Gyökeres down the middle. Now, either way, right, if you're Liverpool, what I love and what we haven't had for a few seasons, Johnny, is that 20, 25 minutes to go and you've kind of been run ragged as a defender or, any position really. And then someone like a Martinelli with his pace and his impact against Liverpool in certain games is coming off the bench. Or you see Waneri, coming off the bench. You've got, Calafiori, who is so much better going forward than coming back. Like when I want to know what you think about this, because I was talking the other day to my cousin George, and I said, I think our bench is better than Liverpool's. I think that's an X factor for us this season. You're talking about maybe having Calafiori on the bench or Miles Lewis-Skelly. Of course, we lost Havertz, Saka would start, but I still think it's a good bench. Trossard, if he's fit, depending on which way he wants to go, I believe that we have a better bench than them. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I do at the moment, and obviously the spectre that's hanging in the background of the league at the moment is whether or not they get Isak. Because if he is the Isak from last year, it makes them overpowered. It means that even if Saka regresses, Salah, I should say, regresses, and or the African nations impacts them the way that we hope it will, they've still got another, freak player, elite player in this league, best striker in the league last year. And so it would swing momentum a little bit. But if they don't get him, there's no question, I think, that we have resourced better than they have. And they've signed some good players, in my opinion. But I still feel like because our needs were so severe before, i.e. our striker, we were playing with Mikel Merino up front for months. That is a disgrace. I don't need to tell you, but
imagine if we didn't have him.
I know it's criminal that we have to. We needed him so bad, but either way, now we look like we are well resourced. And the thing you said about Martinelli, I think it's spot on. I actually think that you asked me what I would do. That's what I think Arteta will do. What you said. I think he will trust Martinelli. The one thing about Martinelli, and I've been frustrated with him, is defensively, his output is very good. In big crunch games where you've got defending, Arteta will always go for the more defensively sound option. And if you're going to blood Eze in his first game, you're going to want like solid running outside of that. And I think putting Ethan in would be a little bit too much of a risk in Arteta's mind. But the reason why I say is I just want to be aggressive with this stuff. I'm not asking us to be complete kamikaze, but if Ethan is going to be a guy who can break through, you've got to remember what this guy looked like last year. He was looking like, he was like Lionel Messi breaking into the team, just taking the piss. And it just screams of he's learning a new position. Last year, the biggest issues Ethan faced is when players weren't giving him the ball quick enough and they weren't giving him the ball in the areas that he could do the most damage. So it was making him look worse than what he was. When they started trusting him, he was just, coming alive. And I think that will happen at some point if he keeps playing in the 10. If Eze takes that spot over Ethan, I think Ethan might start getting a bit pissed off because he's like, hold up, I've signed a big contract. You've now started Noni Madueke at right wing over me when I was, I scored more goals than him last year. And so I think that if you want to keep Ethan happy and feel like he's got skin in the game, then why not start him? And you can always change it around. You can bring Martinelli on. But I think Ethan would have a big impact potentially in that, because he's a threat from shooting from range. And he's, with Eze, I think Eze might unlock something in Ethan as well. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So that was my kind of taking it rather than what I expect Arteta to do.
And that's why I kind of wanted to throw it at you in terms of, what the gaffer would do. I think Waneri's issue is the defensive work. And I think Mikel Arteta's in a little bit of a pickle. We got a few more minutes here. You okay for five more minutes, Johnny, for us to wrap up? Okay. I think Mikel Arteta's in a bit of a pickle, because if it was down to him, he probably thinks right now, God, I wish Dalman was 18 years old. Because you see Dalman come off the bench and he has an insane impact. I mean, he's won 3 penalties in the space of a month, right? You see Waneri come off the bench, and in the cup games, I thought he was great. I think he's so talented, but he just doesn't smack you across the face the way Dalman does with his talent. And, we thought like Ethan was a generational talent, and Dalman's kind of doused. He's put a little fire, and he's put a hose on it and said, hold on a second, he can't drink, hold my beer, hold my Fanta. And
beer.
My ginger beer. I think that's the issue. And I agree with some of the squaddies. I don't think Ethan starts this game because Mikel's obsessed with players winning duels. And I think that's where Ethan is expected to be at a different level right now, whereas Dalman's going to be that joker, that kamikaze, the Mo Salah, the player that doesn't really have to defend. 20 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, come on and win us the game or get us a point. Would you agree or disagree with that?
It's tricky, actually. And I think that we can all be, have a bit of recency bias here. Max Dalman's come on, looked unbelievable, won us a penalty against a team that is going to be going down this year, more than likely. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to diminish what he did. It's obscene at 15 that he's doing that. But we have to remember what Ethan was doing last year. He was looking every bit as impressive. And it wasn't just winning penalties. It was banging goals in big moments. And, he's coming on against Man City and rather than Leeds and at 18 and scoring a final goal in a minute as well, because he's picking the ball up, driving at people and hitting scorchers. So I think that, the issue that is at play for Ethan is recently we've seen his form dip. It's unmistakable. It's kind of just gone off the boil a little bit. It felt like every time he came on the pitch, he was changing the game. Whereas towards the last back end, it seemed like Arteta stopped trusting him as much and took him out of the firing line. And then the key thing I think, and this is the really important point about this year, he's changed position. So I do think that in Arteta's system, the two areas where you really have liberty to go out and do stuff are the wingers. Saka and Martinelli essentially get the ball and you can just keep running. You can keep doing it. For me, the issue with Martinelli is not that he won't run. It's that the output just isn't good enough. But Saka can pretty much do what he wants from an attacking point of view. But you just absolutely have to do your defensive job. When you look at what Martin Ødegaard does in the team, his role has been quite specific. It is, all about that metronomic kind of presence, keeping the ball ticking over, obviously assisting, which have pretty much dried up, if we're honest. He's not getting assists all the time anymore. And obviously the other thing that gets presented to that role are shots from the edge of the box. But he's so profligate that position is just not getting maxed out at the moment. And so I do think that Ethan has an opportunity to go in there and show how you could play it in a different way. And with that being said, I think the other aspect of that position is all the running that Martin Ødegaard does in terms of leading our press. And Ethan is just not at that level yet. So he's more of a defensive liability, even though I actually think there's an argument he, once they start trusting him more, could offer more going forward than Ødegaard, certainly a goal threat. And he's not creating so much. Like, it's not like we're missing sitters every week. Ødegaard just hasn't quite been at it. So I think if Ethan has been spoken to the way we mentioned, Arteta is talking to Eze, and giving him assurances that you are going to get game time, I think he will be knocking on the manager's door going, just trust me, give me a chance. And whether or not Arteta does, he's done it in the past with youngsters, but I don't think he will on this particular game. But I do think that we might be writing Ethan Nwaneri's obituary just a little bit too early. Like, just wait and see. This could be a big breakout year for him.
Yeah, no, listen, I love the player. I do. It's just that whole kind of, and managers do it too, but fans do. It's the shiny new toy is Dalman, right? We've got to protect this young man at all costs. He doesn't start games for me. He can have moments, like he'll be on the bench, you know, maybe not for every game. He'll play in the cups, but we've got to be so careful. He's 15 years old. I'm old enough to be his grandmother. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? I think with Ethan, Gunnar Galactico says, Ethan cannot control a game. Amazing talent, but it's selfish and needs to learn control. And I would say when Ethan came on, did we score 4 goals against Leeds? Were we winning 1-0 when Odegaard went off? He did have an impact in that game. Yeah. He also gave the ball away cheaply, but you're right. You know, he's still honing his craft. He didn't play a lot of games. Mikel didn't show him enough trust towards the end of last season. In the semi-final against PSG, he brought on, you know, Calafiori and White, and Ethan, you know, there's 4 minutes to go here and he's not really giving him a shot. So I think it's going to be an interesting story that evolves, but for sure I haven't written him off at all. And I think it's a great place to be in, to have these dilemmas, right? Versus we're scrambling to see who starts at Anfield. All right, 250 of you in live chat. Hit that like button. Did you want to add something to that, mate?
Yeah. Just that last thing, because I think the Ethan dynamic may be as interesting as, like, the Ethan Odegaard Eze dynamic might be the most as interesting a tactical situations we have in the squad. The thing is, right, last year Ethan performed admirably as a 18-year-old, filling in for Saka, our most dangerous player, in a system that leans so much towards the right, and we got real production out of him. Look at what Gabby Martinelli was serving up in, you know, much greater sample sizes, and he couldn't score. You know what I mean? He was not operating at the same goal contributions per match as Ethan was, and I think that there was all that talk about whether Ethan would sign that contract or not, and it had to have been had a conversation of, you stop playing me towards the end of the year. Are you going to go off me? You know, if not, sell me, because we're hearing Real Madrid's interested, Barcelona's interested, Man City definitely are interested. He is that kind of talent. And I think that promises would have been made. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed a contract that you are going to be competing in this setup with Martin Odegaard. And Ethan would probably be looking at it going, let's be honest, Odegaard's performances last year do not make me feel like I'm never going to get an opportunity. He's probably thinking it's a 50-50 that he's going to be playing the same as he was last year. And I could outperform that Martin Odegaard. So I think that he probably thought, okay. But when you go and get Eze, then you're saying, oh, actually, we might put Eze in there. But then Ethan would be going, well, just play me right wing. Because if Saka's injured again, I've got form for being an absolute menace in that position. Dalman's not ready. I think Ethan has got more than enough, you know, stuff on tape to say I should be the right wing backup option and keep Noni back out left. But if you're gonna keep Ethan out the team because Eze goes in Odegaard's stead, and you shift Noni to the right, at that point, I think Ethan might look at it and go, hold up, what's going on here? Suddenly I've re-signed up for a long period, and it doesn't feel like I'm being centralised in the plan. So that's why there is somewhat of an imperative, I think, for Arteta to find what they want to do with him. Whether or not this is the weekend to showcase it, I'm not so sure, but I would love to see it personally.
Very fair right there. And we'll see what happens. I love it. I can't wait for the game. Chris, I agree with you. Dalman is a cameo appearance. He's like the actor who has the cameo role and is on screen for like 4 minutes and then scoops the Oscar. You know, insane performance, something that nobody will ever forget. Right, let's get you out on your predictions. Come on, squaddies, hit the like button on the way out. It's free. Johnny, what say you?
I don't think we're going to get beat. And it's really what's bouncing around in my head is between us winning 2-1 and a 2-2 draw. And if I'm honest, I think it'll likely be a 2-2 draw. I do see a way for us to win this game, but I think 2-2 probably is right. And my other prediction is Big Vic's going to score another goal in this game as well. So I'm going to go for 2-2 with Big Vic scoring.
I have this dream of seeing Big Vic pull an Arshavin, where there's this, somehow the mask and the Arshavin 4 celebration, combine. It's like the Avengers, they're all, all these things from the past and the arcs and the threads and the storylines. It's time to win at Anfield in the league. And I don't think there's a better time for us to do it. And a lot of the squaddies here are saying 3-1. I think our defense is good enough to shut them out. But I also think that we've got different tools in the toolbox. We've got the set piece, which is reignited this season again. And we've got the X factor. They haven't seen Arsenal with Eza. They don't know. They've seen him at Crystal Palace. They've got the film. But I think it's hard for Slot to prepare for this game because it's not predictable with Saka in the team and Odegaard in the team. We're going there for the first time in a while, I think, with a little unpredictability. And I think that's tough for Liverpool to plan for. So I fancy it. I fancy it 3-1.
I love that. I can get behind it. And that's a very good point you make about the unpredictable nature of how we set up and what Slot has to deal with. So, yeah, I fancy us to make some waves. I can't wait for Sunday.
I can't wait for Sunday. We beat Liverpool and Manchester United lose to Burnley this weekend to add on to the Grimsby Town misery. Well, that was a bit of a Scouse accent. That wasn't Northern at all. But, I mean, the joys of seeing that is... Someone said to me the other day, don't you feel sorry for them now? I said, no. Are you joking?
Oh, heavens, no. No.
Are you mad? Like, we had to sit through years of humiliation, being their dartboard. They loved it. And then the 8-2 came along and it got worse and worse. And we were ridiculed, Johnny. It was like being the kid in the playground, just constantly picked on and bullied and, take my milk money and all of it. This is so joyous. I do not feel sorry for them one bit. And last night, seeing Amarin with that Dubry Watsit he had, I don't know what he was doing. It's just brilliant. And the fact that we're ascending and we continue to ascend as they descend is just great, isn't it? I just wanted to hear your 30-second take on the plight that is Manchester United.
It's one of the best things about football. They've bought and earned misery. A lifetime of footballing misery. They earned it. Cantona. And I actually don't mind him as a person, but as a footballer, disgusting. Fergie. Like those years, the end of the Invincible run. Like Van Nistelrooy. Gary Neville. You deserve it. You deserve a lifetime of footballing misery. I'd like to see them relegated. And I love seeing their fans in absolute anguish, soul-searching. Just hook it into my veins and I'll be a happy man.
Inject it. Well, you have been brilliant. The squaddies love you. And our chief like officer has spoken for everyone. Johnny, great stuff. Don't be a stranger. And Matty K, who can be a little bit of a stranger, but when he does come back, he's an OG. I like Johnny. And there's tons of comments like that. And we really appreciate you. Just to answer a quick question, title number 14. I love Olympiacos and Anorthosis Famagusta is my Cyprus team. And I can't finish the show without paying homage to Paphos FC, making the Champions League. My hair's standing up on end right now. People don't realize we haven't had much to celebrate, since, George Michael's our thing. We can always claim George Michael, Johnny, as Greek Cypriots. And Marcos Baghdadis when he was really good at tennis. So this moment for Paphos FC, it's massive for the city of Paphos. I'm sure many of you have been to Cyprus and vacationed there. And what a logo. I believe it's an old poet who comes from Paphos. And the team only came to be in 2014. So I had to give my Paphos and Cyprus And Cypriot football, a massive shout out. Seeing them part of the draw today, it was unbelievable. So fire up the grill, get the kebabs on, have a little bit of hummus, and celebrate Buffos FC if you are my people. Let everyone know where they can find you and what you've got coming up. I've got your Instagram handle here. I think you're on TikTok as well. Let everyone know where they can find you, Johnny.
Yeah, jump on my socials at Johnny Cochrane on everything. I get involved in TikTok these days as well. I do some
look at you
TikToks. I know you're just trying to reach out to the younger generations and whatnot. Try and make them funny. So if you like that kind of thing, do follow me over there. And obviously, I'm on the Arsenal Opinion pod, co-hosting on that. And yeah, we've got a really exciting season. And one thing that we're showing is the pod world doesn't have to be so, exclusive of each other. I'm sure squaddies that love this will love the AOP as well, and vice versa, as you always get a load of praise when you come on as well. So you can check us out over there, and we've got a Patreon and whatnot. But apart from that, yeah, come and follow me on my socials. That'd be ideal.
Love that. And yeah, please go listen to it. They do love the pod, and we love Pete as well. So thanks for coming on. Do you promise to come back? Because now you're going to have to just come back during this season. You've had too much of a good debut. You've smashed it. Which Arsenal player had a phenomenal debut? My mind skips me right now, but you're one of them, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely up for that as well. I've put a couple of seeds out there with predictions, so I'm going to have to come and be held accountable one way or another. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, guys, I'm going to post a couple new videos. I'm going to post the Sky Sports segment a little bit later on, and then at 11 o'clock tonight, if you're not snoozing, I'm going to be on the Sports Bar with Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy. So DM me, email me if you want me to give them a bit of a hard time, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com. But I will be going on there with the Anfield Wrap guys to talk about the big game this weekend. Until then, stay safe. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. At ease, everyone. And I'll be back tomorrow live at 6 o'clock UK time with Liverpool legend Stevie Nicol.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.